What's up everyone, my name is Fred Tam and welcome to my channel. The Canadian economy has seen several industry impacts as a result of COVID-19. But make sure you watch to the very end because I'll be talking about the future of some parts of the Canadian economy so you can be prepared for the possibilities of what's to come. But before we get into it, hit that subscribe button and also hit that little notification bell, because if you don't, then YouTube doesn't let you know when our new videos are out and you could miss out on some really cool content. So in my channel, you'll mostly find videos related to all the various aspects of real estate, with the goal in mind to educate interested viewers like yourself. And I recently started two different series. So the first one is where I talk about what's going on with Toronto real estate on a weekly basis. And the second one is to promote a solid educational foundation on pre-construction homes. You can check them both out in the descriptions below. And as time goes on, I'll be expanding this channel with other series. But for this video, I wanted to share more than just real estate news. So first we're going to look at the Canadian economic situation as of today. Ever since COVID-19 first hit Canada on January 23rd, I remember reading about it and finding out that it was a man at Sunnybrook Hospital exhibiting several symptoms and had just come back from Wuhan, China. And there were two things I did immediately after hearing about this. I loaded up on toilet paper at Costco after grabbing a hot dog. I'm just kidding about the toilet paper, but not the hot dog. The first thing I did was I thought about my son who wasn't with me at the moment. The second thing I did was reach out to my parents and siblings. Since this was the first case and it was so close to home, it was at that point when I realized that this virus is going to be something hitting us all over the world and quite possibly stick around for quite some time. Thankfully, Sunnybrook's emergency department was prepared with tons of professionals and experienced nurses who had treated patients from the 2003 SARS outbreak. So a big shout out to all healthcare workers. We appreciate you all around the world. So since the first case in Toronto, we also saw a shortage on toilet paper at Canadian retailers. Okay, no more toilet paper jokes, but for real. I was down to 4 rolls and I couldn't find any at the stores. I literally had to plan a trip to a friend's house and pick some up. We've seen so many changes and adjustments made to the Canadian economy, and we're going to be talking about some of those today. So COVID-19 was actually impacting the Canadian economy before the current crisis. So back in January, the reduced trade with China and advisories against non-essential travel to China affected potential Canadian economic growth. Domestic growth in Canada was only up 0.1% in January. Canada has not seen domestic growth like this ever since spring of 2016, when GDP was actually negative at minus 0.5%. Adjusted projections have already been created and published with the annual percent change in real GDP for this year. Canada is expected to see a drop by 6.2%, which is worse than the global projection of minus 3% for this year. One of the reasons why Canada is getting it worse than other countries around the world is because Canada is seeing a double hit from both COVID-19 and collapsing oil prices due to the price war with Russia and Saudi Arabia. Several oil development projects around Canada have already been put on hold, and these projects were supposed to create 7,500 jobs. The largest industry known to consume oil products is transportation. Canada ranks in the top 10 countries around the world for oil production and consumption. Translink, which is Vancouver's transit agency and also so happens to be one of Canada's largest transit agencies, recently announced 1,500 layoffs. Services on their bus routes and rapid transit system are expected to drop by about 40%. And with the lost revenue due to the decreased ridership, Translink has already lost $75 million. Even the city of Mississauga has been severely impacted by COVID-19. Right now, the city is losing $20 million a month, and they expect to lose $90 million once ongoing savings measures fully kick in. The main reason? 3 letters which all travelers miss. YYZ. Toronto Pearson Airport is mostly situated in Mississauga. The city has already let go of 2,000 employees. Air Canada also plans to let go of 15,000 employees. This is worse than Vancouver International Airport's layoffs, which are just over 13,000. Job losses around the country are already at 1 million, with unemployment rate at 7.8%. And nearly 70% of those jobs were lost in Ontario and Quebec. This number absolutely decimates the unemployment numbers over the past several decades. Even during the financial crisis of 2009, Canadian job losses were just shy of 125,000. And I think the real picture today is way worse than what we're seeing right now. There are likely a number of Canadians who are not able to work right now because of business closures and lockdowns, but who are technically still considered to have jobs. But take these job loss numbers with a grain of salt. Yes, the job losses and the numbers are real, as in these people are actually not working, but some of these companies are only temporarily laying off their employees with the promise to hire them back sometime in the future. So until that time, these temporarily laid off employees can file for employment insurance benefits, assuming they don't investigate if they were wrongfully dismissed. My guess is that the standard employment contract doesn't include a stipulation that allows an employer to temporarily lay off their employees. So does that mean they actually don't have the right to temporarily lay off their employees under common law? Well, I'm not an attorney, so I can't answer that question. But if that were the case, then wouldn't those temporarily laid off employees be entitled to a severance pay instead? Which would you rather have? The promise of going back to the same job at an unknown time in the future, or a severance package that would allow you to move on and figure out the next chapter in your life? I think the reality is that a large population will accept these temporary layoffs in hopes that the promise to return to their jobs will be fulfilled. Nobody wants to be without work these days, and the feeling of safety and security is the core foundation of our psychological needs. Fortunately, the Canadian government has our backs. Over the past few months, in light of the escalating situation with the pandemic, the Canadian government released several emergency benefit programs to help those in need. I counted 48 personal and business relief measures announced to date that Canadians can potentially qualify for depending on their individual circumstances. Some of the popular ones include the Canadian Economic Response Benefit. The federal government is providing Canadians a $2,000 per month taxable benefit for up to 4 months. This is probably the most popular one that Canadians are looking into right now. There's also a new wage boost that will top up the salary of essential workers earning less than $2,500 per month. If you own a small business, you can qualify for a loan of up to $40,000 interest-free through the Canadian Emergency Business Account. For parents who receive the Canada Child Benefit, they will be able to receive an extra $300 per child this year. There's also a one-time payment of $200 per child that the Ontario government is providing. And for anyone paying taxes, which is most likely anyone watching this video, the CRA is deferring 2019 tax return filing deadlines until June 1st, 2020. There's also support for students and recent graduates who will get a 6-month break on repaying their student loans interest-free. And for anyone with a loan with a large amount of interest, like a mortgage or a home equity line of credit, the Bank of Canada also lowered their interest rate to 0.25%. Also, 6 months of mortgage payments can be deferred depending on your financial institution. If you want to learn more about this, check the video here and click the link up top. I break it down for you to see how mortgage deferral affects your mortgage payments. And for anyone else who still happens to be driving around still to anywhere else other than a grocery store, auto insurance companies are also providing premium rebates. So qualifying for any of these different plans will largely depend on your financial situations. If any of these things sound like something you can benefit from, then check the links in the video description below and talk to your bank, your financial advisor, or whoever it is you go to for financial advice. Also, check out the channel in the link up top. He does a really good job at explaining these convoluted benefit plans and breaks them down so that they're really easy and simple to understand. And one of the things that he always talks about is parenting during arduous times. Parents have no doubt had to step up their game during this pandemic. Check out the small summary of what it means to be a parent these days. I definitely feel for parents during these times, especially those who are forced to stay home without any work or those who are going to be new parents. Mothers in particular rely on access to certain services that just might not be available right now. So for all the moms and dads out there, I feel for you. Teachers, professors, educators of all shapes and sizes, I also feel for you. There's a risk that universities and colleges are facing due to the limitations on air travel. If international students cannot enroll during the fall semester, then universities and colleges are at risk of losing $6 billion. More than half of the international students that intended to study in Canada this year have decided to defer their admission to the following year. The Canadian government is already looking into ways to extend online education to students outside of Canada. If we don't see international student enrollment at levels where we expected it to be, then this impacts immigration, which we know is a huge driving force in the Canadian economy. Not only that, but mitigating a $6 billion loss could also mean more job losses in the education sector. Immigration also plays a huge role in fueling the housing sector in our economy. Hey guys, hit that thumbs up if you're liking this video, that way YouTube can share it with everyone else. Alright, now let's get back to the content. Immigration also plays a huge role in fueling the housing sector in our economy. Key changes have been made to the way agents must now operate. Open houses and home showings are pretty much down to zero. You can say that the spring real estate market that we're so used to seeing has been washed away. Granted, there are still real estate transactions taking place these days. People still need to move. Take the following into consideration. Canadian real estate prices and sales volumes didn't really see an impact until the second week of March. This sounds about right, since usually there's a bit of a delay behind the stock market, which saw an impact around February 20th. So in the beginning of March, we were well on our way to a heated spring market. People were still selling homes, people were still buying homes. Now on average, people entering into agreements of purchase and sale have about 60 to 90 days to close on the deal. This gives enough time for the seller to sell their home, buy a new home and move into that one, and it also gives the buyer enough time to sell their home and move into this one. If they're renting, then they have enough time to give their landlord to provide notice to terminate the lease. So if those deals in March are not closing for another 90 days, then that puts their closing dates to the middle of June. So we could very well be another 1 to 2 months away before we see the impact of COVID-19 on the Canadian real estate market. And if you want to stay up to date on how the real estate market is trending, check my weekly updates here that come out on Mondays and click the link up top. In the latest episode, I talked about how home prices were starting to level out compared to previous weeks. But once again, we're going to have to wait for those pre-COVID-19 transactions to close before we really get a good understanding of how the Canadian real estate market is. And so what about the homeowners that did sell their homes pre-COVID-19? It means now they're in the market as a buyer. They were able to benefit with rising prices of Canadian real estate with spring just around the corner, but now they're also able to take advantage of the lower prices due to COVID-19. So for them, it was actually the perfect storm. But now, what about everyone else? Are they in a rush to sell now and buy at a lower price? Are buyers jumping into the market now because prices are down 20%? Those who don't have any urgent real estate needs are likely going to be sitting on the sidelines right now. Will we see a spring market closer to the summer or the fall? People are still likely anxious and motivated to make a move. It could be because a family is growing and they want to upsize from the single bedroom condo, or maybe even the reverse where the couple wants to downsize and move into a smaller home that requires less maintenance. Everyone has a unique situation. Another factor could be the high unemployment rate. People might be forced to sell. There's also going to be a ton of people looking for work. So Canadians might be motivated from that perspective and relocate to find a new job. But how long will this take, and when will we see the curve flatten out to the point where things can go back to normal and hopefully watch the Raptors play again? What temporary changes that the Canadian economy has implemented will see long-term adoption? One of the major contributors to the growing Canadian labor force is immigration. With job losses and unemployment reaching new heights and CERB applicants at around 7 million, there's a looming question of how soon unemployed individuals will be able to find work again. But since there is a decline in immigration due to the virus, this could actually create less competition for jobs once the economy reopens. We don't know that for sure, but what we do know is that we've never had the economy shut down like this before, so there's really no way to know how this is going to play out. For working professionals who are now working from home, their employers will consider the benefit of this type of work style and how they manage the office space in the future. It's been about a month-long experiment now, albeit forced onto them, but it should provide enough data to employers to decide what is working and what is not working when it comes to working remotely. There's also potential cost savings by lowering commercial space requirements and the need for other office resources and equipment. Now, I'm not suggesting that a full transition to working remotely and ditching office spaces completely is the one-size-fits-all answer. It's just not how businesses are traditionally operated. But discussions will open up on whether they need to go into the office 5 days a week sitting in cubicles next to each other. If the option is there, then at least employers and employees can make a decision together based on where they're best able to focus on their work. Employees are also seeing a benefit from this. No more long commutes, lower transportation costs including savings on fuel and vehicle insurance, more time with family, and reduced meal expenses. More people are being cognizant of what groceries they're buying now, and because of that, grocery store businesses are doing very well right now. But 3/4 of the Canadian population still considers grocery shopping to be a little bit risky right now. Fears about health and safety are driving new habits that convenience and saving time did not. This pandemic will psychologically change the way some of us go about our daily lives from now on. Part of the Canadian population will likely continue with this quarantine state of mind with the fear of going out even when this is over. But if Canadians are going to be slightly more afraid to leave their homes, then how will that impact the education system if parents are not willing to let their kids out? Remote learning is working well for some students at home right now, but some are likely struggling to the point where it's not working at all. Being in school isn't just about the formal curriculum. There's also the social connections that are built with the teachers, the friends, and the community. So how will social distancing measures continue in schools? If you remember what it was like back in high school when classes ended and the bell rang, the hallways turned into what seemed like rush hour traffic. And to make matters worse, the Ministry of Education is planning to make new schools smaller and tighter. This is even after closing schools that had surplus and jamming more kids into fewer buildings so that they're closer to running at maximum capacity at 95%. This can also cause families to relocate if they can't get their kids enrolled into the schools that they prefer. And fortunately, we are seeing a rise in the real estate industry with the quick adoption of several new experiences like virtual home buying plans, virtual staging, self-guided 3D tours, and live streaming open houses. Virtual tours have become an increasingly popular option for home sellers, making their homes more accessible to home buyers during this difficult market. But even in a post-pandemic Canadian real estate marketplace, we'll likely see these creative strategies permanently implemented for the benefit of home buyers and sellers. Falling home prices during what can be more or less described as an inactive market is only temporary. We hope to see a thriving housing market, and if history has taught us anything, we are likely to see the real estate sector also recover in due time. So that's it for this video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video, because if you don't, then YouTube doesn't let you know when new videos are out, and you could really miss out on some really cool educational content. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment below to let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.